Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a book review for the Graveyard book by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Chris Riddle. Now first of all I'll go over the basic facts. The genre is classed as fantasy, might be dark fantasy, I'm not good on genre so I'm not sure, but I would class this as dark fantasy personally. And it is 289 pages long. It is illustrated, as that shows. This book was released originally in 2008. It won an award, the Carnegie Medal, in 2010. And overall, first things first, I loved this book really badly. This was an amazing book. Now on to the review and indeed an explanation of why I actually thought this book was an amazing book. Now, this book starts off with a murder, actually several murders, and the main character is a character called Bod, which is short for Nobody, and his full name is Nobody Owens, which you'll find out why he gets called that fairly quickly. And essentially, he starts off as a little toddler, little boy, and his family gets killed, and he wanders into the graveyard, and he's then essentially brought up by the graveyard inhabitants, and obviously he gets a rather unique upbringing. Now I'm not giving anything away because it basically tells you this on the back of the book, essentially, and indeed you learn this book, and this is within the first 10 pages anyway. Bod's adoptive parents, who happen to be dead and therefore ghosts, are Mr. and Mrs. Owen, or is it Owens, sorry. And you get to really like their character. They are, they've been in the graveyard for some time. They're a married couple, obviously. It's a really interesting sort of dynamic between them two, and indeed between Bod, who's not their son, obviously, but his adoptive son. It's an unusual relationship, especially as obviously they are not actually, they've got no physical form whatsoever, which is an interesting one. Now, a second character that gets introduced extremely quickly is Silas, who essentially becomes Bod's guardian and protector, who can actually physically interact with Bod, although is also not entirely strictly normal in a lot of sense. Obviously, he can see the ghosts and the various other inhabitants of the graveyard, and his character is brilliant. He's a very dark, sort of odd past, which you will learn about to a certain degree, and his character is amazing. I love his character, and the dynamic between him and Bod is really interesting because Bod likes him but he doesn't quite understand him, and indeed Silas doesn't understand Bod, so it's a slightly interesting little relationship between them, but it does work really well. Overall, the story is fairly simple in terms of the overall story. He basically lives in this graveyard, gets brought up, and it's fairly obvious that at some point there will be something to do with the man who tried to kill him, and indeed did manage to kill the rest of his family, who is known as Jack. Obviously, you know that at some point something will happen in regard to that. Each chapter is preceded by an amazing picture, which is illustrated by, probably can't see that very well, Chris Riddle. So I actually have quite a few other books where he's the illustrator, namely the entire set over just here. His artwork and his style of drawing is already familiar to me, and actually I knew it was him even before I actually even read anything on the front of the book, because he's got a very similar style as the other books I've got. His illustrations are just simple as such, pencil drawings, just black and white, but they are brilliant and they work unbelievably well for this book. Of course, yeah, Graveyard book, it's appropriate being just black and white. Now, the way Neil Gaiman has worded this is quite simply genius. I don't know the word myself, and I can't put into words how well worded he's done with this book. He's obviously, well, it's Neil Gaiman. He has a phenomenal way with words, as pretty much everybody already knows by this point. And he has a very interesting outlook on things, and this is an incredibly amazing example. So I wouldn't have thought of writing a story about a boy living in a graveyard who starts off with a murder and then gets brought up by the dead inhabitants of said graveyard. That's not something I would have ever imagined, but it works extremely well, and overall I love this book to pieces. And indeed, I know for sure that I'm going to be probably rereading this on a semi-regular basis. I'll probably read it next year again, and probably almost like a yearly read. It's not a difficult read. It's only 289 pages, as I think I said, and it's well worth it. It's a sort of fairly quick read, but an extremely worthwhile one. Basically, if you like Neil Gaiman, you basically need to read this. And indeed, a lot of people that I am subscribed to, I think quite a few of them have read this. And to those who haven't, then you should. This should be quite high on your TBR list. So that's pretty much it for my review. So overall, and in summary, if you like a fantasy book and you want a interesting and rather unique look, and especially a dark fantasy book, then buy this. If you like Neil Gaiman, then, well, you might have already read it, and if not, you probably already plan to, regardless of what I'm saying now. And that's pretty much it. So, thank you for watching. If you've read this book, then please let me know. I'll be very interested to hear what other people thought about it. And that is it. So, goodbye for now.